All right, so time for our review. Let us recap on what we've covered so far in this first foundational module of Transcendental Brain Training. After our welcome and orientation video, we spoke about the differences between direct and indirect, one being a pointer to what's already here now. No process, nothing required, what is here now in this moment. And indirect teaching being a pathway or a process to create some sort of movement in order for the direct teaching to be realized, right? I'm using the word realized because it's already here. And then we spoke about embracing the paradox of being a human being, right? The human is ever evolving, the body mind is ever evolving, and the being is whole and complete. Then we spoke about witnessing the two wings of the butterfly, the energetics of the masculine and the feminine, divine mother, divine father. And then we spoke of the different parts of ourselves and how we go from our parts all the way to pure awareness. We went through the Transcendental Brain Training modality lineage and the core modalities that have influenced me. There have been many different things that I've experienced and experimented with and studied, and all of them have influenced me in some way. Yet this modality, Transcendental Brain Training, predominantly draws from the four modalities that are discussed in the lineage. So those are signature models that I went through. And then there's the koshas, which is a model from yoga, the neurological levels of change, and Maslow's motivation model. All of those we went through in just this foundational module, concluding with the 12 tenets of Transcendental Brain Training, which kind of orients you. It's the longest of the lessons that we went through because it goes through all of the various frames and ideas that we must hold as we embrace this new way of thinking and operating in the world. That's where we've been. So that's a glance in the rear view mirror. Now let me give you a glimpse of what's to come should you wish to continue studying and learning Transcendental Brain Training. We will kick off with a module called Coping with Crisis. And coping with crisis is about going from dysregulated nervous systems, and many people are chronically dysregulated and just don't know the difference. It's just their normal way of being. If anxious, depressed, manic, any kind of, whether it's high strung or flatlined, as a chronic way of being, this is a dysregulated nervous system. And so we will be working with our nervous systems in this module because the nervous system is the bottleneck. So we're going from dysregulated to resilient and rewilding, right? Returning to our original way, our wild original way. Before we learned all of the fear and the freeze and all of these responses, we don't want to make any of our survival responses wrong or bad, right? They're wonderful things that enabled us to be here now. And we have the opportunity to let our bodies know that we can move beyond survival into actually thriving. And we get to resource our nervous systems for that. So in this module, we had 8 lessons that we'll go through. We'll go through the cycles of transformation, talking about the living wave of transformation and how we move through these cycles. And there's some signature terminology I'll explain in that, and how it's reliable and predictable, just as spring follows the winter. So it is with these cycles of transformation, and the better we understand them, the more at peace we can feel wherever we are in the cycle of transformation. So then we'll speak about polyvagal theory, which is some of the science of understanding our nervous systems. Neuroception, interoception, don't worry if these words don't mean anything to you yet. We'll go deeply into them in the lesson. Complex post-traumatic stress and post-traumatic growth, because it is so important that we understand that when we have a traumatic experience, we then have an opportunity to turn that into growth, right? There's so much spoken about in terms of things going in the direction of post-traumatic stress. How often do you hear complex post-traumatic stress disorder? It's way more common than post-traumatic growth. But post-traumatic growth is also available to us. So I want to change the narrative and start talking about post-traumatic growth and what we need to do in order to enable ourselves to access that. So then there's applied neuroplasticity, which is what's happening as we are holding in the awareness. Our brain is forever changing in response to new inputs, right? This is all learning is. All learning is applied neuroplasticity. I'm a bit of a neuro nerd, so I might have given that disclaimer earlier, but I do my best to use metaphors rather than bog you down with too much science. But if you need citations or anything like that, pop it in the comments and I can hook you up. So then this is where it gets good for me, because this is where I really like to play, and this is the practices section, because once we understand this is what we're doing, we've got the frames, then we get into the practices, the meditation practices. This is how we resource. The vagal toning practices. Again, this is how we resource. Pranayama practices. This is moving our life force energy, our chi, through breath work and various forms of qigong, like training the life force energy in our body, and various somatic hold practices that we can use to pick us up if we're feeling flat, or bring us down if we're feeling wired, right? So that's what you can look forward to in the Coping with Crisis module. Then we come to the inner parenting program, which again, I love. I absolutely love this program, because so many of us, we go through life doubting ourselves and feeling insecure and inadequate, and maybe you can relate to this. I don't think I'm the only one. And a lot of these beliefs are byproducts of being raised in a way in which we weren't taught about our inherent value and our inherent brilliance, and to understand that our authenticity is what's needed in this world. So we then start looking externally for approval, for validation, for love, and we don't shine the way that we're here to shine when we do that. So this inner parenting program is about going from suppressed to shining and quantum leaping the inner child healing journey through support from the Divine Mother and the Divine Father archetypes. And so as we go through that process, we will cover the lessons getting to know the various parts of us. And that's a really beautiful thing to do, to really get to know the parts of us. And we're doing this somatically as well as psychologically, right? It's, for some people, they lead more with the mind, others lead more with the body. But regardless of whether it's, the left foot leads and the right follows, or the other way around, the other's not far behind. So it's like that. We will get to know the various parts of us, and there are so many, and they're all so wonderful, just waiting to be loved, waiting for us to discover how lovable they are. And then we will speak to emotional maturity, signs of emotional maturity. What are we looking for, and how can we start to observe these signs of emotional maturity in ourselves and in others, which is really helpful if perhaps maybe your life context has you wanting to attract a partner. If you're not already with someone where you feel you're in full alignment, then understanding what these signs of emotional maturity are is really valuable, and being able to cultivate that in yourself so that you can attract your reciprocal. So important. We're going to somatically release these old stuck stories because it's not until we let them go from the body that they're actually out of our, bodies and fields. And how do we do that? Well, we hold space for them and envelop them and love them, and they kind of dissolve and disintegrate into spaciousness. And so there's practical tools and strategies for that. Then calling upon the Divine Father, that's a specific energetic activation we'll go through. Calling upon the Divine Mother, another energetic activation. We get into the science of quality parenting, because the research, the parenting literature shows us that there are 4 distinct parenting styles. 3 of them have been linked to stunting emotional maturation. Excuse me. One of them is positively correlated with facilitating and fostering emotional maturation. And emotional maturation must be facilitated. It is something that we can only grow to the degree to which this is guided and facilitated. So fortunately, there is a way in which we can do this for ourselves, and through this process of using these archetypes, the infinite intelligence of these archetypes, and layering upon it the attributes of quality parenting, right? So you'll notice again, we're weaving through, going all back and forth, the spiritual saturation, the mental maturation, and the somatic sensitization. So then we're going to talk about the support structures that we need in terms of a village to support us as we raise our little kids, and what's available to us, because there's some great things out there, and the more that we know about them, the more empowered we are, and they're free and accessible and amazing. And then the last lesson is the self-aware parenting protocol, which is one of my favorites, to have a really quick and easy protocol when the little ones are screaming inside, having a tantrum inside. What do we do? If we're not going to give them lollies, what are we doing instead? Right? So that's what that is. And then we come to the next module, which is called Unwind the Body Mind. And in this, now we're going back to unraveling a bit more, right? Going from fear to flow. And this is a process that we use to kind of transcend the habituated patterns and expand using soul arts. So a lot of this module comes from the Embodied Energetics curriculum. We're talking about energetic literacy here, creating coherence, understanding our natural way. How does our own energy move? Does it move from the cosmos down into our body first, or does it move from the earth up through the body first? Because it's always moving, right? In whatever direction. It's just which way does it tend to go first in this current season. So we'll be understanding that, going through the 4 energetic states, learning the dance of embodied alchemy, and how we can turn this into a daily practice, and how rapidly we actualize our dreams and our goals when we do that, because we're devoted to the process of intentional actualization or conscious manifestation, whatever you would call it. But this is how we can supercharge through energetics. And then we have a lesson on dancing our way free, moving the energy through the body through dance. Titration and trauma integration. We're talking specifically about how this process is titrating resources through the nervous system. Again, linking it back to the nervous system, always coming back to the nervous system. And then we end with intuition enhancing technique, which is another kind of signature process. Then we will come to the final module of this program, which is the guide inside, which the tagline for this is wave goodbye to difficulty making decisions and feel confident in your authentic expression by attuning to the guru within you. So we start this module out with the first lesson on congruency signals. How do we understand our own yes, no, and maybe so? If you've ever been on a inner realm immersion sanctuary retreat with me, you would recognize this as a practice that we do, attuning to our congruency signals. So then we go through some mindfulness practices and bring more awareness to our senses so we can increase our sensitivity. Because by this point in the program, we're at the very end of the program, you're not the same person you were when you started the program. So much transformation has already taken place. So again, we're revisiting and we're relayering mindfulness and sensitivity. Then we come to energetic boundaries. We don't really need to talk about boundaries so much when they're embodied, when they're energetic. We can talk about them, but they're just more obvious when they're embodied and energetic. And so this is what we want to learn how to attune to. What are our energetic boundaries and how do we know when they're being crossed? Because often we only discover them when they're being crossed. And there are ways that we can practice tuning to ourselves regularly, more consistently, so we have more self-awareness. Then we go through navigating inner conflict, what's going on when there are parts of us that are not in harmony with each other. And how do we navigate those situations with the goal of creating a win-win for all? What are some strategies that we can use for that? And so we're going to model some demonstrations in that lesson. And then we go through head-brain intelligence. What are the signs of that? Heart-brain intelligence, gut-brain intelligence. We're going through specifically what each of these brains are responsible for and how we can look to the appropriate brain for the appropriate task. And then we wrap up that module with the lesson on multiple brain integration techniques, which is how we weave these intelligences all together. So that's what's to come in the rest of this practitionership program. If you have any questions at all, any queries, any comments, feel welcome to pop them in the comments. I'm here to answer them, and I would love to support you in whatever way I can. If you've enjoyed this series, feel welcome to like, share, subscribe, and I'm looking forward to continuing to create content to enlighten your world. Sending you so much love.